and homosexuality, the ideas of safe spaces and hate speech, and even the idea of cultural Marxism have been brewing behind the scenes for decades. Namely, these ideas have been taught at the university for years. Finally, those college students and now graduates have become societal leaders, and we are reaping the poisonous fruit of these corrupt ideas. What can be done about that now, and how can we reach the university for Christ? We'll be examining those questions and more with SES alum and Ratio Christi staff member Aaron Marshall. I'm Adam Tucker with Southern Evangelical Seminary, and this is Why Do You Believe? Well, welcome back, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of Why Do You Believe, the official podcast and live stream of Southern Evangelical Seminary and Bible College. I hope you'll be sure to check out last week's episode with Dr. David Geisler from Norm Geisler International Ministries, where we discussed Norm Geisler, the movie, which will be debuting next month as of this recording, be June 13th, is the worldwide premiere. And very interesting discussion with some of the stories and things that came out as this documentary was being made about the impact that Dr. Geisler, who of course was the co-founder of SES, about the impact he has had on so many lives worldwide, some of which are just now being found out about, and I'm sure many of which we will not know this side of heaven. So, as always, we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, like our other videos, like our Facebook page. Be sure to click the notifications in YouTube so you know when we're going live. And again, you can visit ses.edu to download our free SES mobile app, where you can find the audio of these live streams in podcast form if you prefer to engage with the content in that way. And also over 500 hours of other free apologetics content, most of which comes from our National Conference on Christian Apologetics over the last several years. So again, ses.edu for that. If you follow the show, you know that we like to start off each week with a fallacy of the week, a fallacy just being a bad way of thinking, bad way of arguing. So today's fallacy of the week is reductionism. This is also sometimes called nothing buttery, because you'll hear it referred to as, well, that is nothing but this. So the fallacy of reductionism occurs when someone tries to explain the whole as nothing but the sum of its parts. Now, sometimes that is legitimate to an extent. A pile of rocks, for example, is really nothing but a pile of rocks. But that doesn't always work. So just a few examples to help you think about this a little bit at least. There's obviously much more that needs to be covered. But a few examples would be water is nothing but hydrogen and oxygen. Well, water does consist of hydrogen and oxygen, but I can't drink hydrogen, I can't drink oxygen, but I can drink water. So hydrogen and oxygen in the Thomistic sense, as we talk about at SES, would be included in those things virtually. That is, they're included, but together they make a new substance, this thing we call water. So water is a bit more than just explaining it in terms of its hydrogen and oxygen. Someone else may say, well, a fetus is nothing but a clump of cells. Well, cells are certainly involved in the physical makeup of a fetus, but there's more to a fetus than that. We would argue that a fetus is, in fact, a developing human being, which gets into much more than just its physical makeup. There's actually metaphysical truths going on there, which obviously we don't have time to talk about at the moment. A couple of other examples, someone may say, Christianity is nothing but a crutch for the weak. Well, it may provide support for the weak. And in fact, I would say it certainly does, because we're all weak, because we're broken in our sin. But the point of someone saying that is trying to say that it's not in fact true. It's just this emotional support system. Well, it may emotionally support someone, but that doesn't say anything about whether it is actually true or not. And finally, we hear a lot in some form or fashion, specifically today with critical race theory and those sorts of things. You may hear things described in different ways, but really can boil down to someone saying the problems in our society are nothing but the product of white supremacy. Well, are there white supremacists? Yes. Has white supremacy been a problem? Yes. Is that the source of all of our issues that we're dealing with now? Absolutely not. So this fallacy of reductionism really tries to unjustly, it's not really the right word, but illogically simplify things that are often much more complex than they may appear at first. So that is the fallacy of reductionism, our fallacy of the week. All right, so let's jump in to the topic at hand, and let me switch shots here and bring in our guest for this week, Mr. Aaron Marshall. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for being with us today.
That was nothing but a fine introduction to fallacies.
Thank you so much.
What are you going to do when you run out of fallacies? Are you just going to recycle them?
I will have to, yeah, unless you can get me a new list. That'd be awesome.
Well, what's happening on college campuses now, they'll probably make up more every week.
This is
So
true. So Aaron is an SES alum. He also serves with the ministry Ratio Christi, which we'll get into shortly, but he is the national director of chapter formation, and he's also the area director for Utah and Idaho. Hailing from, actually, Aaron, I'm not sure where you are from originally, but I knew you from North Carolina.
Right. Yeah. Originally from Virginia. Then I lived in Texas for a while. I was actually practicing law in North Carolina when God got a hold of me through apologetics, through an SES home study course on apologetics.
Oh, nice.
that our friend Blake Anderson put together, and then followed Blake to Ratio Christi, and that was 2012. And so I was running a Ratio chapter in Wilmington, North Carolina for 7 years. And then in 2019, we moved out here to Utah to help get some stuff started out here.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm still waiting to get out there to go skiing and snowboarding with you. I hadn't made that happen yet, but
that is, the skiing here is definitely worth it. I'll tell you that much.
That is awesome, man. So yeah, we'll have to make that happen sometime. And of course, my phone is going to start ringing as we're in the middle of this. All right, so Aaron, we like to play in honor of Thomas Aquinas a little game we call On the Contrary. All right, so I've got 60 seconds on the clock, and I'm going to ask you a series of completely logically fallacious either-or questions just to see if we can get to know Aaron a little bit more. You ready to go?
Sounds good, yeah.
All right, let's do it. All right, Mac or PC?
Mac. I'm on a Mac right now.
Yes, you're a good man. See, I knew we got along well. Let's see, apples or oranges?
Apples.
Apples. All right, very good. Dogs or cats?
Definitely dogs.
Definitely dogs. I hear you. I hear you. All right, so here's one for a man moving from Wilmington to Utah. Mountains or beach?
Yeah, we used to think we were a beach family. Then we realized we're mountains, so we're definitely mountains.
Okay, nice, nice. You got the best of both worlds here the last several years. So along those lines, then, hot weather or cold weather?
Hot weather.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Oh.
Definitely do not definitely do not like the cold. I mean, I can deal with it. Yeah, definitely hot.
Okay. That's understandable. All right, so I always have to ask our guests this one. Printed books or ebooks?
definitely printed books. I know that bothers you tremendously, but yes, printed books.
That
Yes.
that has certainly been the consensus so far. But yeah, I do like my ebooks, so we'll learn to get
But,
along.
but I will say not humid. So on the hot but cold question, not humid. So I don't miss the North Carolina humidity when it's 80 degrees, but feels like it, you're still dripping with sweat.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, hot but not humid, if I can pick that.
I totally understand and totally agree. All right, well, let's jump into the actual topic at hand for today, reaching the University for Christ. So, tell us a little bit about what Ratio Christi actually is, because it sounds like a very strange girl's name or something. So, what is this thing, Ratio Christi?
Yeah, so you were a chapter director for Ratio Christi before
I
you
was,
moved
I
into your
was.
current position. Yeah, so Ratio Christi is just Latin for the reason of Christ. It was actually started. It was a ministry of SES for years, and then a guy up in Pennsylvania was kind of figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. He had been in government and was actually going to go study at SES, and he saw Ratio Christi as part of the ministry there and said, this is a mass movement waiting to happen. I want to kind of take this out from the umbrella of SES and start a college apologetics organization. And so in 2011, we became our own separate 501c3. We're on about 140-ish, maybe 150 campuses now, nationwide, even campuses in other parts of the world. But we're a college apologetics organization. So we believe that there are historical, philosophical, scientific evidences that demonstrate that Christianity is true. And we recognize that upwards of, depending on who's doing the polling, upwards of 75% of Christianized students will walk away from the faith when they go off to college. And the number one reason they give is intellectual doubt. They've got questions and they don't think that Christianity has the answers. And they've been, in many cases, catechized into this idea that faith means believing things without evidence. And so what we want to do is be there to encourage the Christian students, to help them recognize that not only are there good answers to all the questions that they're being asked, but that Christianity is the only worldview that can answer all of these questions because it's true. And then secondly, to challenge atheists and people who believe other worldviews and other religions to think about the truth claims of Christianity, to maybe for the first time, to be exposed to the evidence for the Christian worldview, and then be able to determine that Christianity is true. And so we do that by weekly apologetics meetings where we're talking about topics that the students want to wrestle with. Those would be Christians or non-Christians that are coming to our meetings. We'll certainly have both. And then we try to do some kind of big event on the college campuses where we are each year, where we're doing some, either maybe it's a debate on God's existence, maybe it's having a Christian come and do a presentation, but just trying to engage the whole campus with the truth claims of Christianity. And then we're there to follow up, hopefully to have continuing conversations with these students and to challenge the general ethos on campus, which certainly is not Christian, to say the least. And this would be true of even Christian campuses. Most people think, hey, if I send my kid to a Christian campus, that they're safe. And what we're finding is that many Christian campuses, except for SES, are not exactly safe places to send your kids. And so if they don't know what they believe and why they believe it, they're going to be challenged when they're at university. And we think that's great, right? It's great to have these questions, but we recognize that we've got good answers and the students haven't been taught those. And so let's help them to see that those answers are found in Christianity.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I liked most about Ratio Christi, and you're right, I was chapter director at UNC Greensboro for 5 years, I think, helped start the chapter there, is the fact that it's not designed to be a one-stop kind of campus ministry. It's really meant to be a complementary ministry to these other campus ministries that are already there on campus. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so our big, we have a big no competition policy. There's a lot of campus ministries, and so a lot of people think, why another college? Why another campus ministry? But the reality is that a lot of the campus ministries are essentially doing the same thing. I mean, if you would go to some of these other campus ministries, and you would, they're doing some general discipleship, Bible studies. Their weekly or monthly meetings, whatever they're doing, are almost like mini church services. They'll have some worship by song. They'll have a message. But we are, we want to stay in our lane. So our lane is apologetics. And so we certainly recognize that we are not the end all and be all of campus ministries, that we are a small slice of what we think needs to happen on college campuses. And so we're not trying to compete with the other ministries. We're trying to come alongside them to augment what they're already doing. And so a lot of these campus ministries, the leaders have not been trained in apologetics and philosophy. So they've got the same kind of questions that the students have. And in a lot of cases, what we can do is we can partner with those ministries and help train some of their leaders, their directors, to be able to answer some basic apologetics questions, but also to form partnerships with them so that they know if their students do have questions, that they can send them our way. Not that we're trying to steal students, but we're just trying to help those students have a fully orbed Christian worldview. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And we'll see that in churches and in other campus ministries. And so in some sense, what we're trying to do is help them see the need for what we are providing, good answers. And hopefully that transfers down to the churches so that students are coming to college more prepared to be able to answer these questions, because we know they're going to get them. Yep. It's just a matter that they're not prepared mostly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what exactly is your role specifically with Ratio Christi? What are you involved in day to day?
Yes, I wear a couple hats with Ratio Christi. So we moved out here to you. So the president of our ministry, Corey Miller, who I think has been on your podcast before, he grew up here in Utah, grew up LDS, Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so he's always had, then got saved, and he's always had an affection for Utah, the home, in some sense of Mormonism, certainly Brigham Young University here in Provo. And so in 2017, I think it was, I came out here with him. We were trying to hire some people out here because we didn't have anybody, any college in Utah where we had a Ratio Christi chapter. And so I do all the hiring for Ratio Christi nationally. And so if someone is interested in starting a Ratio Christi chapter or joining an already existing chapter, either as a supported missionary where this is your full-time job, or as a tent maker where you have a full-time job and you want to just partner, at one of the universities, I will help you go through the application process. And so we came out of Utah, and I just, I think my heart was just kind of broken for this area and for the Mormon people. And so I went back home to my wife. We were in Wilmington, North Carolina, like you said, at the beach, and asked her if she was interested in moving to Utah. And she said, no way. And then we kind of prayed about it for a couple of years. And so we moved out here in 2019. So I run the chapter at the University of Utah. And then, as you said in the introduction, I'm the area director for Utah and Idaho. And we now have chapters at the University of Utah, where I run. We have a chapter at Weber State. We have a chapter at Utah State. And now we just hired a guy up at Boise State. And so there's just no Christian presence in reality here in Utah. And so it's such a need out here. And, we're just excited for all the things that, we think that God's going to do out here in Utah in this area into the future. So, so I run a chapter, do the director of chapter formation, and I'm the area director, and have 5 kids. So I also spend a lot of time doing all those kind of things. So I got a little of everything. Yeah.
That is so awesome. And it's so encouraging to see your faithfulness and your courage and in your heart for the people out there. So I think you were originally supposed to be out there for a year, and now you're just there. So.
Yeah, well, COVID has not been the best time to be doing campus ministry. So we moved out here in 2019, and the fall, things were really we're building some stuff, and we're really excited about, what God was doing. We actually were able to do a big event. We had Corey and an atheist professor, Peter Boghossian, out here at University of Utah and at Weber State and at Utah State to talk about critical race theory. And then obviously COVID hit, and then everything kind of fell apart. And this past year, it's just been, you can't do anything on campus. And so it's been a really hard time to do ministry. So, originally it was a year, then we didn't want to leave. But now I really think God has kind of broken our heart for this area. And we've got some vision for what this could look like going forward, specifically in Utah County, where Provo, where BYU is, the least evangelical county in the whole country.
Wow.
Most people don't think that, but at less than 0.5%, about 0.4% evangelical Christian in the county. Wow. It's heartbreaking. And yet you've got a college, Brigham Young University, with 35, 40,000 students who all profess to know Jesus. So it really is heartbreaking. But I think, a ministry like Ratio Christi, the stuff that we learned at SES, apologetics and philosophy, and be able to think well about these most important topics is so needed out here because, they have their feelings, and typical evangelicals, they have their feelings, and so we've got to have something that we can use to help them to see that what they believe isn't true. And it comes down to really the use of apologetics and good philosophy that we learned at SES. So I really think it's a mission field. It's really it's encouraging and really frustrating and heartbreaking at the same time.
Sure, sure. So let's talk about the university as a whole. Would you agree that obviously, if we're talking about Brigham Young, then they're gonna be talking about Mormon ideas and those sorts of things. But just with the university as a whole, would you agree that it is kind of the incubator, so to speak, for the ideas that eventually become mainstream in our culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the university is, kind of it's the grounding for all these things. I mean, so many of the ideas that we're wrestling with now were ideas that were being espoused in the university, 20, 30, 40 years ago, whatever. And then as those people who learn those things become professors, now they're teaching it, and then those students graduate, and they're going out into the world, and they're holding these ideas. And as Richard Weaver said, ideas have consequences, and we're seeing some bad ideas on the university that are then being flushed out in society. And I certainly think that we're seeing that now. And then the university becomes sort of it becomes just circular, because you have the same people teaching the same people, and people that are graduating and then just going to become professors. And so especially when you don't have any alternative voices, ideological diversity in the university, it becomes an echo chamber. And it's amazing how different it's gotten. Even the last, I've been doing this for 10 years, almost 10 years now. And even to see the change in the university from 2012, 2011 to now, it's amazing how, I would say, worse it's gotten. How it feels like somebody's hit the accelerator on crazy town at the university.
Well, that's actually my next question. So you have been with Ratio Christi for quite some time now, as you said. So what are some of the consistent issues that you're seeing people are dealing with over and over again across the country on various campuses?
Well, I mean, so now it's critical race theory, and it's just identity politics is the number one thing. I mean, I remember when I was in Wilmington at UNC Wilmington, they had the Seahawk. So it was the University of North Carolina Wilmington Seahawks. They had the Seahawk compact on the doors, right at every classroom, right by the door when you walk out. And basically, it was just this compact that would say that you agree to certain things. And one of them was that you don't want to offend other people, that you won't offend other people with your ideas. And so this idea of that we're just of just relativism, of pluralism, I mean, that has certainly been there from the beginning, that we can't tell other people that what they believe as far as religion is wrong. But I would say certainly in the last half maybe of my time on campuses, LGBTQIA and the transgender stuff is really dominating culture now. And so the students are afraid to talk about any tough topic. It's not just those topics like LGBTQ and transgender. I mean, they're afraid to talk about any topic because of this, cancel culture, which is also kind of picked up in the last, 4, 5, 6 years. I guess maybe 2, 3 years, really. They're afraid to disagree on anything. And so we've had consistent, University UNC Wilmington and say University of Utah, kind of maybe somewhat similar in that, just kind of general secularism and those kind of things. I mean, like you said, BYU would be a little bit different, but yeah, mostly it's these relativistic topics. It's now so much not that students don't think God exists; they just don't care. I just got a new book, Apatheism. Just the idea of not, I don't care if God exists or not. And I think the polling are showing that, and I think that's becoming a lot more prevalent now in the last, at least in the last couple of years.
Well, so we didn't rehearse this beforehand, but you're doing great segueing into my next question. So thank you.
We think alike. That's right.
That's right. That's right. It has been really interesting, to me at least, how quickly things have progressed in the apologetics world. I mean, that's what we traffic in all the time, of how quickly it's progressed from having to focus on the Richard Dawkins, the four horsemen of the new atheism and all these sorts of things, to now these uh, social issues. I mean, abortion and those things have always been things that we're dealing with. Uh, but now with the critical theory and transgenderism and these sorts of things, just how quickly that has progressed and how our focus has shifted. What I also think is interesting, though, and we mentioned this quite a bit on the podcast, is how the classical philosophy that undergirds everything we do at SES has something to say about all of these issues, because
about
you're
all of them.
thinking as a whole, you're thinking systematically about all of this, and it boils down to bad philosophy, obviously
That's right.
sin and all those sorts of things. I'm not talking about the theological aspects, but uh, just how we think about reality impacts all of these other things, which is to me is just really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I could do what we're doing now without, I think, without the education I got at SES. I mean, I mean, I was, I went to undergrad, went to law school, but think the way I was learned how to think at SES, we use that every day because, like you said, everybody is walking around with just sort of just jumbled up ideas about reality, and it's manifesting in all these things, and a lot of our conversations, like you said, is just kind of taking people back to first principles, just going back to these basics, and we can kind of build from there. And it's just it's amazing. We're obviously, some of these issues are 5, 6, 7, 10 steps removed, but it's easy when you take when you take a hard left when you should have taken a right, at the first principles. Of course you're going to be off down the line. And so a lot of what we're trying to do with this is certainly true with our Christian students, is to help them think better about these topics, because the Christian students are not thinking better about the topics. I mean, we always talk about that, ideas are more caught than they're taught. So many of the ideas that our students have imbibed in culture, they've picked up just from their friends and social media and the things that they're consuming, and they've bought into it. And so helping them kind of disassociate or take apart their worldview and then rebuild it, it's really hard, but it's also really exciting, because when you see some students who are thinking well for the first time, they finally got some answers to questions that they've been asking for a long time, but they didn't think they were good answers, and they thought they had to kind of stick their head in the sand, and you start showing them that the answers, not only are there decent answers in Christianity, the only answers are in Christianity because it's true. It's exciting to see them kind of open up and then be willing to engage other people, because they realize that we've got the goods, we've got the answers. And so it's very hard to do campus ministry now, but it can be incredibly rewarding for those opportunities when you do get to influence some students and really help them kind of come out of the doldrums and be able to think better. And even some of the students that have gone through our program and then we've have gone on to SES for further education, because they realize how important it is to think well.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And yes, I know from experience, the do not grow weary in doing good is a mantra to remember if you're doing campus ministry, for sure. So you mentioned seeing a lot of apathy among students, and I think there was a recent study from George Barna that just came out last week that mentions that as well, with the millennial generation into Gen Z just not caring whether about the question of God's existence. But what are some of the other mindsets that you're seeing, not just from students, but from professors as well? Because I know Ratio Christi likes to try to impact their professors just as much as the students on a campus.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of even the professors have bought into this idea that, hey, my Christianity is my own private beliefs, and I don't want to tell other people, I don't want to force my views on people. And within with faculty, you've got, I mean, this is their livelihood. You've got all kinds of issues along those lines. So I mean, I get it. Obviously, you start rocking the boat as a faculty member, and you could lose your job. But I think we see a lot of that again. Just scared to have conversations, scared to disagree. I mean, our culture now, it's intolerant to disagree with somebody, to tell somebody that they're wrong. And just think, and it's so much worse on campus. And I think I think it's going to be really interesting when we go back. We're almost kind of like treating this as like a reset. when we go back to campus this fall, hopefully as all the campuses kind of open back up and we're actually be able to be on campus. I mean, last year there was at least at the University of Utah, it's a 35,000 students, and you'd go walk around campus, there'd be maybe 100 that you'd see out. So I mean, just nobody on campus. But I'm really interested to see when we go back on campus, because I think what's going to happen is it's just going to be exacerbated. It's just going to be worse because it's this whole idea of not wanting to cause somebody mental trauma by disagreeing with them. I think, especially with COVID, I think that's going to be really just way worse. So we certainly see that, and then I just think so many Christians, especially, and again we keep coming back to these topics, but so many Christians are caving on social issues, and we're seeing that happen within ministries. Without naming names, but we're seeing that happening with. We're seeing that happen again. At seminaries, we're seeing at colleges, but with ministries that are caving on social issues, and then it becomes this sort of domino effect where once you cave on some biblical teaching, I think it's just a matter of time before they start caving on all of it, and so. That's been really disheartening.
And I was not laughing because of that. I was laughing because that was my next question. What kind of changes are you seeing amongst other campus ministries?
Yeah, and so that's disheartening because, and just this idea of we just want to love people. You hear that all the time. And you have a great talk that you do on what is love, and I think our culture is so misunderstood that term, but the campus ministries that they just want to love, quote unquote, students. But it's not loving for me to encourage a student in any kind of behavior that is against their good. That's not loving for me to do that. It's not loving for me to not to say something to them. And of course, the way I do it, I want to do it with certainly with love and compassion, but I want to actually say something. And so I see that, and then I just see, I just see us kind of, we kind of being moved into this, almost like into our own little corner. And as long as, as long as the religious clubs, the Christian clubs are, as long as they're not trying to cause problems or stir the pot, then the university's fine with them. But as long as they stay kind of in their corner and do their own thing. But anytime we want to try to engage the campus, anytime we want to try to, proclaim the Christian, the truths of Christianity on the campus in a larger way, we don't necessarily see that the other campus ministries are willing to stand up to that, stand up with us in that. Now it's not all of them, of course. It's there's some, I'm not just trying. There's plenty of great campus ministry, but I see that as a trend where we don't want to, especially on certain social issues, they just don't want to kind of be outed as holding to biblical ideas, and that's only going to be problematic. It's never going to be good. It's going to get worse and worse. And so I worry about seeing over the next 10, 15 years, especially if so many of them are buying into critical race theory, that we become less. We just kind of become pushed more and more into a corner, on the campus, and have zero influence. As little influence as we have now, but even less.
Yeah. So speaking of that influence, you mentioned one of the primary things that Ratio Christi wants to do is to equip students and professors to think well, and sometimes for the first time. Right. It was interesting. My 10-year-old, almost 11-year-old, we were alone in the car the other day, and he was asking me, somehow we got to talking about what it means, what white supremacy means and woke means and this sort of stuff. And so I was doing my best to try to explain it and to what certain people thought. And, within 5 minutes, with no philosophical training, he's pointing out the self-defeating nature of these things. And I said, buddy, that there are PhD university professors who cannot see that truth that you just recognized within 5 minutes of us talking about this. So what is strategy, maybe for lack of a better word, what is Ratio Christi's strategy to try to impact these campuses for Christ? I know it starts from the ground up, and it's one small step at a time, but what is the vision? What is the strategy to try to reverse these trends that we're seeing?
Yeah, obviously prayer, we just pray, but I mean, we are trying to. I think Corey Miller has a line. When the student, you've got them in the university for 4 years. When the professor, you've got them for 40 years or whatever it is. So I think there is a push to try to help faculty members really understand what it the reality of the Christian of the truths of Christianity and of the Christian worldview, and then helping them to think better about how do they stand up for the truth on campus, because it can be super lonely and fearful as a Christian, as a faculty member on campus. So I think that's we're trying to have an emphasis on that. But I think what we're doing out here I'm just trying to have lots of conversations, and so doing a lot of I think apologists always have the kind of get the bad rap that we just want to argue with people all the time. And I'm just trying to have conversations. And so when we could be on campus, I would set up, we'd set up a table, and we would, at University of Utah, very secular university. And we would set up a table and do our whiteboard evangelism. There's other chapter directors who do the same thing within Ratio Christi. And people wanted to talk to us. I mean, people would sort of line up. I mean, occasionally people would, scream at us or something, but, we'd ask questions. Does God exist? Yes, no, who cares? Does it matter? Did Jesus rise from the dead? Are there objective moral truths? And I think the students wanted to talk about these things. There's this idea in culture that students don't want to have these conversations, that, they don't want to talk about politics and religion. And I've found if we can do it in a way that's not just yelling at people, but having productive conversations, using tactics, Greg Kokel's tactics, we use that all the time, but just asking good questions. Students want to have these conversations. And so I think our strategy from that standpoint is just to try to get the students to think about these things. I mean, they've been so indoctrinated by culture and social media to just, it really is, they're just kind of regurgitating the company line. And if you can challenge them on any of that and help them to just make them, when they're at home at night, think, well, that didn't make any sense. He's right, to begin to start questioning that, then we would start having more conversations with students who were coming back and asking more of those kind of conversations. But I think it's certainly an uphill battle, and it can be very overwhelming. But if we lose the university, I mean, Peter Boghossian, we talked, atheist professor who has done some stuff with Corey Miller on critical race theory. He said, if the Christians lose the universities, we're all done for. Now this is, right, we disagree socially on everything. But he said, if the Christians lose the universities, we're done for, because then where's it going to go from there? So it's hard, and we want to, sometimes we do feel like giving up, but we just want to keep pressing on. So I think kind of from that strategy of the students starting those conversations, just getting them to have conversations on things where they're certain that they're right, and then you just ask them one or two questions that kind of breaks that. It is interesting to see some of those students really become open to hearing more, because you're just having a good conversation, and you're not yelling at them, but you're challenging the way that they think.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it is a long game. This is not a thing we're going to reverse in a year. It's kind of like losing weight. You gain it so quickly, and then it takes forever to get it off. But
I've been sick for about a month, and I've lost a bunch of weight. So just get really sick, and that'll help you lose weight.
I don't know if I want to lose it that bad.
Yeah, it's not good. But I think you're right in that. I think it's a good point. Is that I think many conservatives, and maybe not, but we don't have the long view, right? We want something to happen fast, and I'm certainly guilty of this. Hey, we tried that for 5 years. When if you look at the history of the university, you look at the way that some of these ideas. They've germinated for decades, and they did have a long-term view, and they did say, hey, this is a 40, 50, 60-year strategy on a lot of these social issues. And they had that kind of, just the patience to let the ideas germinate. And so I think we have to do that versus just wanting to, just try it for 5, whatever years, and then say, hey, let's just chuck the university. We've got to do a better job of just trusting the process and just being there and showing up day after day.
Yeah, that's another thing I appreciated about really the DNA of Ratio Christi being it's a mission organization essentially, and so many mission organizations are numbers driven,
Right.
and how many people are in your group, how many people did you lead to Christ, how many people this, how many people that, and you're not worried about that. It's, yes, of course, just for your own pride at times, but just encouragement. You want, large chapters and large meetings and all that. But a lot of people at your events and all those sorts of things. But it's about those individual students that you're impacting, and you may not know the impact you had on them in that 4 years that they're with you at a university. That seed may not germinate for years to come. And I appreciated that as part of Ratio Christi, that there wasn't that pressure to produce those numbers and pad your account, so to speak, and get the notches in your belt. You're just there to do the ministry.
And it's hard because I think, because even we're supportive missionaries, but supporters don't always see it that way. They want to see numbers and results, and to try to help them to see that we're trying to change an entire culture. And we look at the university as a foreign mission field. I mean, they're speaking a whole different language. I mean, we're and so it has to be this long-term view. But we're just so quick to just want quick results. And we can, if you want quick results, we can get you quick results. And that's the problem with kind of modern evangelicalism. I mean, we can get you the quick results, but there's no grounding there, right? There's no foundation. And then that's why they're filtering out in college. So you're right. It's hard. Doesn't make it easy, but you're right. I mean, our chapters are small, and it's hard work, but you're right. Like finding the glory in, finding the joy in helping one or two students think better and really changing the arc of their life. And, I think about like Grant Forrester, who's now at SES, and, when I met him, just really wasn't, he had some ideas, but just really wasn't thinking that well. And just to see the way in which he's thinking, and now to see how he's able to influence high school and college students, really does make it worth it. Again, if we have that big picture view, but it's a hard being on the college campus day to day, so really just, pray for the college students and pray for the campus ministers who are out there on that foreign mission field.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate the work you're doing. And in our time left, I want to jump into our last segment called I Answer That.
Okay.
So this is usually when I get to play devil's advocate and those kind of things, but not really that kind of conversation today. But I do want to ask, how can people get involved with Ratio Christi? How can they do their part, whether that looks like being on the campus themselves or supporting in some way? What can they do?
Yeah, so obviously we need people to support the ministry financially. I mean, I'm a supported missionary. Others are supported missionaries, and then we need people that want to support the organization as a whole. So that's great. If you are interested in in getting involved on the campus, our goal is to start a chapter at every university in the United States, right? And eventually the world. And so if there's a university near you and you have some training in apologetics and you want to help get a chapter started, you can go on our website. It's just ratiochristi.org, and there's a place you can fill out a little form, and we'll get in touch with you. If you don't, if you think, hey, I'm interested, but I don't have the apologetics knowledge, then you could join an already existing chapter. I mean, we've got chapter directors that are, great at the apologetics, but they need some help in, just talking to people or, running meetings or, social media, those kind of things. So you can help out there. If you're interested in Ratio Christi, but maybe you're saying, I don't have the apologetics knowledge. Well, we have this incredible opportunity with SES, the RCMA program, where you can actually go to SES and intern with Ratio Christi while you're in seminary. So you'll end up, graduating with your MA in philosophy or apologetics or, whatever it is. But you'll also be working with Ratio Christi with an already existing chapter during your time at SES. And then the goal would be that you would then now be equipped to either start your own chapter or continue on at the chapter that you're already working with. And so we have those programs set up. We're setting those up with other universities. Obviously, we want to push people to SES, but we have those with other universities as well. But our goal is that you don't have to have an MA in philosophy and apologetics to be a chapter director. So don't think that, there's a lot of lay trained people that are really good apologetics, in apologetics, and really good chapter directors. So don't think you have to have the degree to be a chapter director. But if you're interested at all, if you're listening to this and you just think, hey, I'd love to get involved with what they're doing, maybe as a chapter director or join an already existing chapter, go on our website, again, ratiochristi.org, and fill out the little form, and then someone will get in touch with you, and we can kind of start that process. And then if you do end up applying, then I'll be the one that will walk you through that application process and get you on board.
That's awesome. And you also get a 25% tuition discount as part of this at SES. So, and that's Ratio Christi with an I .org. So
that's true. That's my southern Ratio Christi. Yeah, it's I guess it's Ratio Christi if you're
Yeah, I don't know how to speak that way, so sorry. I'm as Southern as they come, in case you couldn't tell, if you're listening to this. So, we've talked about this a little bit as well, but just from your experience, how can we practically, other than obviously prayer and those sorts of things, help ourselves and others that we're working with from getting discouraged with just the constant bombardment of what we're experiencing?
I don't know, but I need someone to give me that answer, because I get discouraged. I think I'll say the one thing that lots of things, but one thing that COVID has really convinced me of is the reality of the necessity of Christian community. I think it's been easy for me. It was easy for me. I'm kind of a can be a loner, and just kind of easy for me to kind of want to do my own thing. But in the past, year, just as we've been away from everybody, and just realizing how important it is to be in Christian community. And I know when I get stressed or when I get down, it's almost always when I'm kind of by myself, when I'm not plugged into my community. And so, it can be hard for us, even as apologists or people that it's getting hard for us to find other people who think like us, in the churches. But we don't have to find people that just are exactly like us. I mean, obviously, if there are brothers or sisters in Christ, then what we have in common is infinitely more important than things that we can disagree on. So I think what I'm learning, because I'm certainly hard-headed and stubborn, is to just plug into my Christian community, just how important that is, because it's easy. And I think as apologists, it's easy for us to kind of want to be lone wolf and kind of do our own thing. That's a recipe for disaster. And I think we've seen that in not just, you could fall in, ethically and so, but I mean, I think just from, kind of the evil one, just depression and those kind of things. And I think I've seen that a lot, even this past year, with some, people that I was close to that, that got depressed and those kind of, that's really been big. So I think that's been big. But also just, I mean, one of the things about Ratio Christi SES is, and other places, is that you find out that there are other people who think like you, and you're not the only one. You're not the weirdo who just always think about this stuff. So finding a community like that of people that do like to think about these things and do that's really encouraging. I can get with some of my Ratio friends or some people from SES and just talk about some of these things that other people aren't just interested in talking about, and realize that I'm not, I am weird, but not as I feel sometimes.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah.
So we mentioned the website, ratiochristi.org. Where can people go to learn more about what you're doing personally in Utah and what's going on out there?
Yeah. So you could, I guess you could, follow me on Facebook, or, if you want to shoot me an email, it's just aaronmarshall@ratiochristi.org. You can get on my monthly, well, I try to be monthly, but sometimes it ends up being semi-monthly updates. But we've got a lot of cool stuff going on here in Utah. One of the things we're actually next week, we're going to have a mission team here. Come for a whole week. We'll get trained, do some training beforehand, but we go to BYU, we go door knocking in Provo, kind of a reverse Mormon mission, but just talking to people about the true Jesus. And most people don't realize how different the Mormon worldview is than ours. And so it will force you to understand and to know what you believe and why you believe it, as you're trying to help LDS, understand why they're wrong. And so I think we're trying to do a couple of these a year as a way to really encourage and then to normalize evangelism. It's a really safe place to have conversations with Jesus about Jesus out here, because people want to talk about it. They just mean something very different, than. So pray for us out here in Utah. I mean, Utah is just it's less than 5% evangelical, the whole state. So it's a hard mission field, but I think it's certainly worth it. And if you're interested in what we're doing and you'd like to learn more, even how to support us, again, shoot me an email. It's just aaronmarshall@ratiochristi.org, and I can sit down with you and talk and get you on our monthly email list and all those kind of things. We're hoping to get an SCS on the road out here at Utah sometimes. I think that would be super. It'd just be super helpful for a lot of people out here, because there just isn't a whole lot of apologetics, training out here, and so it's. I think it's super needed.
Nice. Yes, let's make it happen, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, I appreciate your time, and God bless you and all that you're doing out there and all that you're doing for Ratio Christi as a whole. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. This has been nothing but one of the best interviews I've ever done.
See what you did there. I like it. Thanks, Aaron. Take care.
All right, see you, man.
Again, that was Aaron Marshall with the Ratio Christi. You can learn more at ratiochristi.org. And if you are interested in joining their ministry and need training, as Aaron said, we do offer a partnership with them through SES, since it was birthed out of SES originally, and you get a 25% tuition discount through that partnership. So if you're interested in learning more about being a student, whether that's through our certificate programs, degrees, auditing classes, whatever that may look like for you, you can do all of that online via live streaming or asynchronous classes as well. I would encourage you to visit degrees.ses.edu/podcast, degrees.ses.edu/podcast. You can download a free ebook to let you know a little bit more about the uniquely integrated approach to theology, philosophy, and apologetics that we take at SES, and how that can equip you to proclaim the gospel and defend the gospel and engage this culture. So I'd encourage you to do that. And as always, you can visit ses.edu to learn more about the various ways you can partner with us, whether that be prayerfully, financially, whatever that looks like for you. We need your partnership to make this ministry and this school continue to be what it is. So pray that you will pray about partnering with us in that. As always, we call this show Why Do You Believe? And the only reason to believe anything is because it's true. So go share truth with someone today.
Providing an integrated approach to theology, philosophy, and apologetics that will equip you to proclaim the gospel, engage the culture, and defend the truth. That's SES.